Welcome to The Explainer, the 2026 FIFA World Cup. It's supposed to be this huge, massive win for the United States, but according to one source, the whole thing might be heading for a major crisis. Today, we're going to break down exactly what those claims are.
Okay, so let's get right to the heart of it. Here's the central question we're digging into. Is the world's biggest sporting event actually facing a total collapse in demand? The source material we're looking at makes a pretty bold claim. It says, yeah, absolutely, that the expected flood of international fans just isn't coming. And you've got to understand, the stakes here are just enormous. FIFA was originally banking on a staggering $30.5 billion economic boost for the US alone. All of that was supposed to come from millions of fans flying in from all over the world. That was the dream, anyway. But the reality, well, according to the reports our source is citing, it tells a very, very different story. We're talking about a demand that, quote, hasn't materialized. And look, this isn't just about a few empty hotel rooms. The claim is that FIFA itself is being forced to cancel tens of thousands of rooms it had already reserved. That is a huge red flag that the crowds they were expecting just aren't materializing. So what's the actual evidence for this supposed shortfall in demand? Let's break down the specific signs of trouble that are being reported. The source really paints this picture of a travel industry that's kind of in a panic. Instead of this booking frenzy everyone was expecting, we're hearing about widespread cancellations. Hotels and host cities have shockingly high vacancy rates, which is forcing them to just slash their prices to get anyone in the door. And the source argues this isn't some simple miscalculation. No, it points the finger directly at the political climate. You have a hotel executive right here on the record saying people's desire to come to the United States right now is down, and he's specifically blaming administration policies for scaring away international visitors. Okay, so if politics are supposedly to blame, what are the specific reasons being thrown around? Well, the source lays out several key factors that it claims are fueling this whole slump. The argument here is that it's basically a perfect storm. The source connects this rise in anti-American feelings overseas with real fears about immigration enforcement at the border. You mix in some geopolitical tensions, even alleged threats against athletes, and you get this climate of uncertainty that's reportedly keeping fans at home. And all this unease, it isn't just making people stay home. It's actually fueling something way more organized. The source highlights what it calls a growing chorus of international voices who are actively calling for a boycott of the U.S. part of the World Cup. I mean, for example, the source points to this piece of commentary that flat out tells fans with tickets to sell it. And apparently, this wasn't just some random outburst. It was a direct reaction to announcements that Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, would be present at airports during the tournament. And then the source shows that these calls aren't just from commentators. It highlights a really senior figure in the German Football Association. I mean, these guys are a huge deal in world soccer. And he reportedly called a boycott the only logical decision based on the political situation. Now, the criticism isn't just aimed at the US. The source also includes voices from the entertainment world who argue that FIFA itself has a hand in this. They're suggesting that awarding a peace prize in this climate has undermined everything football's about, which basically makes a boycott feel necessary to them. So, to make the case that this isn't just a one-off thing, the source then draws a really interesting parallel to another major sport where politics and big money have clashed: professional golf. It basically presents the story of LIV Golf as a kind of cautionary tale. So the story here goes something like this. The Saudi-backed LIV Golf League, which came in and lured all these top stars with massive contracts, is now supposedly facing its own crisis. The source claims that the same kinds of political and economic pressures are now forcing its backers to rethink that huge investment. And according to the source, the fallout for the actual athletes has been pretty severe. The argument is that this financial uncertainty has left the big-name players who jumped to LIV with, well, no moves to make. They're trapped between a potentially collapsing league and the old tour they left behind. Okay, so this all brings us right back to the World Cup, where these international concerns are now reportedly being echoed by officials right here in the US, especially when it comes to security and funding. The source highlights a congresswoman from a host city district, and she's expressing some really deep concerns over security and the role of ICE. She even mentions getting a very non-committal response from officials, which really suggests her questions about potential immigration crackdowns during the games are just not being answered. Right, and this fear of chaos is a really key point. The source connects these worries to an alleged delay in releasing $625 million in federal security funding for the host cities. The suggestion is that even the domestic preparations are getting bogged down by all this political friction. So when you pull all these threads together, you've got empty hotel rooms, calls for boycotts, a shaky golf league, and even congressional security concerns. The source material really leaves us with one critical question. When these huge, global sporting events collide with national politics, who's the one that ultimately pays the price?